thank you. Thank you all for joining our traffic council meeting. And I see Councilor Bixby is entering, right? Our traffic council meeting for today, which is December 19th. We're just going to begin with introductions. Among traffic council members, I'm David Kozis. I am the transportation coordinator from the Department of Public Works. Other voting members of traffic council are Captain Devine from the Traffic Bureau, Adrian Ayala, the traffic engineer from DPW, also Councilor Bixby from Ward 6, and hopefully we're also joined. Oh, I do see also Margot Spiller. She is going to be voting as our citizen rep today. And we have our city clerk, Danielle Delaney, our clerk for this committee. So we're just going to begin with our first item of the evening, which I'm going to introduce and then give a brief presentation, and then we'll have public comment. So our first item is TC 4724. It's Richard Bima, 29 Elm Street, West Newton, requesting a parking regulation along a portion of the west side of Elm Street between River Street and Webster Street. Note that parking is already prohibited along the east side of this block. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go through the presentation for this item. Here we are. This is the block of Elm Street that we're going to be talking about between River Street and Webster Street. It's near West Newton. We notice the park and playground abuts this street. It's a 26-foot wide street. This is a view of Elm Street looking south toward Webster Street with West Newton Village in the distance. Okay, so these are the official parking restrictions that we have on the books. Did we admit Councilor Bixby?
Sorry, just also joining so I can see it on a bigger screen. Thanks.
Okay, all right. Okay, so we're just beginning, Councilor Bixby. So this image shows the official parking regulations on this block of Elm Street. The areas shown in red is where parking is officially prohibited, and the area shown in with the green box is where parking is allowed. So on this 26-foot wide street, parking officially is prohibited on most of the east side of the street and at the beginning and the end of the west side of the street. And it's allowed for most of the middle part of the west side and along a small section of the east side up near River Street. So that's what's on the books. However, when you're actually looking at the signage in the field, this right here shows the area of the east side? Yeah, of the east side where parking officially, according to our books, is allowed, right? But there's a bus stop there that you can see, and there are signs that say no parking this side that have been there for 20 years. So as far as anyone could tell, parking is prohibited on that whole side and allowed on most of the west side. Okay, here's another view of the street looking south. This image shows, again, it's a 26-foot wide street. This sign is the beginning of where the end of the no parking zone from River Street up to this point. This sign was hidden behind overgrowth for quite a while. We recently had it trimmed back, so this sign is now visible. This is what's on the books and what's in the field. You see that parking is allowed along this whole stretch of the middle part of the street. We see the new construction happening on the street. Again, 26 feet wide. So parking is currently allowed on most of the west side and it's signed as no parking this side on the east side. So my recommendation, our recommendation from Traffic Council is not to approve a further restriction on the street. It's 26 feet wide. That is an adequate width in order to allow parking on one side of a street. In fact, we have many streets in Newton where parking is allowed on both sides of a street that's 26 feet wide or even 25 or even 24 feet wide. We have parking allowed on both sides. Often we have a street coming to Traffic Council where parking is allowed on both sides of a 24-foot wide street, and we sometimes allow it to continue and sometimes restrict it to just one side. But in this case, it's already restricted on one side and allowed on the other side. This is a street that we have a playground, we have a park, we're near the village center. It's a public way. So in general, on-street parking should be allowed on a public way. It's a public benefit. It does provide, you know, for a reduction in speed when we have parked cars on a street. If there's no parking on a street, there's really nothing, to slow down a car. So, saying this, we do need to take some action through this process. We'll take this opportunity to clean up the official regulations, to officially restrict parking on the entire east side, no change to the posted signage. All we would need to do is approve this language so that you could see that we would be, prohibiting parking from, 90 feet south of Webster Street to River Street on the east side. So, that is our recommendation. I'm going to open it up for public comment. If I would say now at this point that if that any decision, any vote that happens at Traffic Council is subject to an appeals period. There's 20 days. If this does if the recommendation is approved, the recommendation that is part of this presentation, there is 20 days to appeal this vote. And if that happens, actually, there's been no appeals. This is usually we just get one appeal a year. There have not been any appeals for any of the traffic items so far this year, but it is available to be appealed. And then if that happens, the item is frozen and it's transferred over to the Public Safety and Transportation Committee of City Council, and they would re-notify the neighborhood and take a final vote. So that is the presentation. I'm going to now open it up to the public. I see there's two hands up. The first one says Crystal. I see you have your hand up. If you could say your name and your address, please.
Hi there, Crystal Bayless, 15 Elm Street. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. My wife Jill and I have lived in our residence at 15 Elm Street for almost 10 years. We're the development that used to be new that's across from the one that's being built now. And I just want to say that our pulling out of our driveway every day is taking our life in our own hands as it is now, because when people come whipping around River Street onto Elm every day when I pull out with my kids in the car, I'm like, so adding another layer of another dangerous element of traffic, having to see around traffic, looking to the right and, traffic coming around quickly to the left is gravely concerning to us. I also just want to mention that I understand that you're saying that a lot of streets have 26 feet, but this is a main thoroughfare for buses. And in the time that we've been living with this new construction across the street, we've had construction workers parking along that right side, the west side of the street, fairly regularly, and it definitely is creating tremendous difficulty with just sight lines, safety, and just backing traffic up. So I just wanted to share that sentiment. I definitely we would not be very excited if this were to pass as to remain a parking space for people to park. You have any-
It's very difficult to see when cars are parked there. It's very difficult to see when there's oncoming traffic, like, to turn either way. It's really been a hindrance since all these, construction workers have been parking there. It's been very difficult getting in and out. And there are definitely a lot of backups we're literally right across. And the other concern we have is the units being built right there. They don't have sufficient parking for all the units that are going to be there. They only have like one parking spot per unit, and they're 2-bedroom units. And so we are very concerned that residents from there are going to just start parking on the street now because they don't have parking. They won't have enough parking in the new development.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're going to go on to the next hand, which is John Bonadio, is it?
Hello, it's Bonadio.
Yes.
Okay, 76 Elm Street, so closer to Webster Street. You just flipping through some of your photos that you have here. So first off, heading south on Elm, which is the west side, if that's how you're calling it, there are 2 bus stops already. So that graphic that you put up that says that people are allowed to park, it's really not that true. So it's basically the south side. Heading south towards Webster, from the whole playground, there's 2 bus stops. So it's really, you can't park along that street. And now,
Yeah, you can see the bus stops in this image actually. So there's one down here at the end of the street
yep,
in the no parking zone. And then I believe that there's another one, which is not on the books as no parking, but there's another regulation that you cannot park. in a
exactly.
bus
So
stop.
I'm saying if you're going to update from the northbound side from River to Elm and put that red line like you have in the picture, you should actually add for the bus stop, and you'll see that section of Elm Street opposite the construction zone. You turn onto Elm from River. You're basically taking your life in your own hands, and you're playing chicken with the vehicles heading north to River Street. So they have on average, since this construction project started, 5 to 7 vehicles, and I'm not talking small sedans, it's big trucks that they park along that section of Elm Street. So if you're coming in off a River and there's the bus or another vehicle coming northbound to River Street, you're stuck there. So now that backs up onto River Street, no one can get by. So because they're sitting at the stop sign, and now all it takes is 3 or 4 cars at the stop sign trying to go left or right onto River Street. No one's moving because you have 5 to 7 vehicles every single day blocking that portion of Elm Street. And I know you said that 26 feet is wide enough that you can get 2 vehicles. You cannot get 2 vehicles past each other if you're driving with those cars parked along that side of the road. It's frustrating, I think, for everyone on Elm Street, because this project is being allowed to be built with insufficient parking to begin with. And now you have these construction people working there that they can't even park their own vehicles on the site because it's that small. So they open up that gate, and there's probably about 5 or 6 parking spots that they can jam their cars in, but it's an inconvenience for them. So they keep it on the street because they don't want to be blocked in until the end of the day. So they all keep their cars on the street. No one parks on the lot. There might be 1, maybe 2 vehicles on the lot at any given time. It just doesn't make sense. There is no neighborhood. They're basically, they're doing this job, and they're not getting any consideration to the people that are already living in the neighborhood. There's no consideration. Like, they're trying to do everything possible to make our lives better. They're doing the exact opposite. They have the sidewalk blocked, which I believe is illegal. There is the only crosswalk that you have there is at the top of Webster Street. So anyone walking down the north side or the east side of the street, you have to run across the street to get to the other side, because right in the middle of the sidewalk, they put their construction trailer and they have the fencing going around the telephone pole. And my understanding is that sidewalk should be open at all times. They just decided, because again, they don't have the space on the lot. So they put their construction trailer right up against the sidewalk, up against the curb. Again, I think that's another illegal thing. For some reason, I just don't understand why there's been so much leeway and consideration given to this builder, whoever it is doing this project. We voiced our concerns from the get-go that this was too large of a project to be built. And everything that we voiced our concerns on is coming true, and the building isn't even being built yet. That's the problem that we all have. There was a car accident on River and Elm Street last Monday, or the December 9th. I believe that's last Monday. With the fire department coming down the northbound side towards River, no one could get down the street because there were 7 cars parked on the west side of the street. The fire department and the ambulance had to park on the east side of the street, so no vehicle could get by because of those people that were parked there. There was nothing that anyone could do. There was 2 police cruisers there. There was nothing that could be done because you couldn't continue on River Street because the cars were blocking the intersection. This is the problem that happens every single day in this neighborhood on that street. And it's the easiest solution is you remove those cars from being parked there. They can park in the municipal lot. They can find someone else that they can rent parking spaces if they need it. But for some reason, we're the neighbors are being the ones that are inconvenienced, and all leeway is given to the construction company that's doing the work there. And I understand that they want to do their job and they're trying to do their job and then trying to get it done. But a little consideration on their end would be greatly appreciated for the neighbors. That's all I got.
All right, so I do want to thank you for that comment, and I do understand the frustration. You know, I live in Newton, also in Newton Corner. I lived through a large construction project, that really impacted the neighbors. Eventually, it did end. The building was done, right? What is being requested here is a permanent change to the parking restrictions on the street, not a temporary change during construction, right? Traffic Council handles permanent changes to parking on a street. We do have the Traffic Bureau, from the Newton Police on this call. So I think that if there are specific safety concerns about, what is happening on the street during construction, that would be the place to go to talk to them so that they could examine and take a look at, what's going on during construction. That would be within their purview. A permanent change on the street is handled through this process. So let's move on. I see, I know I'm not going to say your name right. Is it Ajita? You can unmute and say your name and address, please.
Yeah, my name is Ajita Rajendra. I live on number 1 Elm Street. And I think the 2 people ahead of me have articulated this extremely well. I'm very concerned about the traffic right now. The gentleman, John, who was there just before me, I share all his concerns about the traffic, the parking now during construction. But I'm even more concerned about after construction when those apartments are occupied. The lady said it exactly right. The initial plans for the building had more parking. Then they changed the plans to add more units and reduce the parking. So they're building something that there is not going to be enough parking on that street. And my concern is coming out of number 1 Elm Street, and people really come around that corner from River Street onto Elm Street very fast. A lot of times during the year, the sun is right in their eyes. And when you're trying to come out and there are cars parked on the west side, and you're trying to look around those cars and you can't look left to see what's coming around River Street or not, but you have to pull forward to see whether there aren't any other cars coming. It's really dangerous. And I'm very concerned about it. It's not only the short-term issue, but it's also the long-term issue that I'm very, very concerned about.
Thank you for that comment. I guess at this point, I would say, we do have parking on streets everywhere, and almost every street in the city has parking. on public streets. You know, we do right now have the no parking overnight, you know, winter parking ban, right? So if people have an extra car, there is nowhere on a public street that they would be able to keep it over the winter, you know, all night long. It is possible that that is going to go away with a vote next year. We don't know how that's going to turn out. It's something, you know, to keep in mind on, you know, throughout the city, I think all sorts of places. This street again is a public street near a park. Right now, the west side, most of the west side, except for the ends and where the bus stop is unrestricted. So, I mean, one thing to think about is, you know, is to maybe have some kind of hourly restriction, like a 2-hour limit. That's something we could talk about. We could think about if, you know, if that would be helpful in some way. I'm not sure, but we could see how the rest of the conversation goes. But again, you know, I would find it hard to agree to have a public street that's 26 feet wide right near a village center and a public park that no one's allowed to park on, right, on either side. We don't, you know, we don't really, that's not the way that we handle parking on any of our streets in Newton. I see Linda, you know, you could unmute and say your name and your address, please. And you're still muted, so you need to hit the button to be able to unmute. That you might see a button that you can click on that says unmute, because we cannot hear you. In the meantime, why don't you look for that button, and let's go back to Ajita. You have to find the button that says unmute. So,
Yeah.
Ajita.
Thank you. I just wanted to add one more point. I see what you're saying, and I realize there are other streets that are this wide that have parking, and sometimes on both sides. But the fact is, we do have buses go by, and like the gentleman said before me, if two cars are parked, if cars are parked on both sides, you just cannot go through. So, you know, I don't know. You just cannot go through. The other point is, I think, which may be a difference, is people do drive very fast around that corner from River Street going into Elm Street. And that is a really dangerous spot, as it is today. And if there's going to be more parking along that, it's just going to make it that much more hazardous. I just wanted to make that point, that, you know, the park is quite far away in terms of parking, and there's parking on the other streets there too. But, you know, this part of Elm Street is pretty dangerous.
Okay, thank you for that. And I would say that, yes, we do, and we're glad we still have this bus service. You know, in Newton, we're having our bus service cut left and right. At least we still have some level of bus service on the street. It's not very frequent, but the buses still do go by occasionally. And, you know, like many streets in the city, if you just might need to wait a second and then go around. And again, one last thing before we go on is, you know, we often hear people come to traffic council and say the speed of the, you know, there's so much speeding on our street. What can you possibly do to reduce the speed of cars coming down our street? And the easiest thing, the quickest thing, is to allow some parking on the street. Parked cars on the street slows down speeds. I know you might not want to hear it, but I mean, that is our first thing that we say. If you take all the parking off a 26-foot wide street, I guarantee you the first thing that's going to happen is that cars are going to go faster and create a less safe situation for the residents on the street. Let's go on. I see that you have unmuted.
Yes.
Mr. Baima.
I'm not going to go over what everybody else already said, but just a couple of more points. The bus stop is actually right at the end of the driveway of the new development. How does that work out? And the other thing is, the only time the police or traffic meter maids, what I call them, the only time they do anything is when one of us calls. I mean, they're up and down the street all day long. There's cars parked with one wheel up on the sidewalk. Now, before this construction started, I'm not exactly sure where, but there was the no parking sign in those 3 spots that I petitioned to be eliminated. And when I researched that, I found out that they were not on the sidewalk. They were on private property, which is also where the no parking here, the corner is. It's not on the sidewalk. It's in the flower bed on private property. When the condos were built across the street, somehow that sign disappeared.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I don't understand what you said. Can you say that again? That parking is happening on private property?
The parking sign that you mentioned that was blocked by the
Yeah.
trees. Okay,
Oh, this
that
one.
is not, you look at it, it's not, it's on private property. It's not on the sidewalk where it should be. You see what I'm saying?
So that's not a decision of traffic council. I can definitely understand the reason for
No,
putting the sign there. It is so that you don't have to drill right into the
Well-
sidewalk. It is something that if there's interest in moving the sign into the sidewalk, we could talk to our traffic superintendent about whether that's possible and desirable.
Well, when I first started looking into this, we were told they couldn't do anything with that sign because it wasn't a city-approved sign, never was. But it's been there. I've been here for 48 years. It's been there most of that time. We think it got taken down when the condos were built. But the most important thing is you cannot see the intersection with all the cars parked where they're legally parked right now. You cannot see a car when I'm backing out of my driveway, and I'm sure other neighbors are the same way, until it's on top of you. And with the ordinance being that you can park within 5 feet of a driveway, I almost got rear-ended a few times. Yesterday, there was a truck parked in the bus stop. The builder assured us when he got all his reliefs, 10 reliefs he put in for, he got all 10. That stinks. But there was no parking in the street. Now, when I called him on that, he said, oh, no, I said only delivery trucks. No, he said no cars on the street. You know, and every time we forge ahead with this, we get handed off to another department. You know, can't anybody make a decision that favors us instead of the builder that got 10 reliefs on zoning? I mean, it's a nightmare. There's, like the previous person said, if you drive in that park, that new development, you have to do a 180-degree turn to get into your parking stall. There's no room for snow. They got a relief on that. They got relief on visitor parking. They got 10 reliefs to build that. I mean, did the developers get more influence in the city than we do? It's you. I had one of the police sergeant park in the end of my driveway and view down the street what we have to view when those trucks and cars are parked. And he agreed with me. You cannot see the intersection, and the intersection is not 90 degrees to Elm Street. It's people sweep around that corner. The buses are the worst offenders. There was an accident there, like John Bonadio said last week or so. A bus took the front end off a car and 2 people were transported to the hospital. Now, the only good thing coming out of this building that's being built there is the visibility to the right as you enter River Street is much better. But everything else is worse. And like I said, you're going to have a bus stop right at the driveway of these condos and parking it right across the street. It's just too congested. I would almost think if it was in the middle of the stretch of Elm Street, it wouldn't be so bad. But where you're at the intersection, it compounds everything. And my other point was, oh yeah, they park on the sidewalk all the time, and the traffic people go by. It's like, there's no curbstone more than 2 inches high most of the street, which allows them to do that effortlessly. On Monday, when we put our trash out, we have to be careful they don't park in front of our trash barrels. And it's like, just, you can go on and on and on about what's wrong with that project. And because it was allowed, it's going to go through. And who's going to, who's gonna suffer for them? But the residents that have been here, I've been here 75 years.
No.
I've been in Newton 75
Yeah.
years. My wife corrected me, I'm sorry. I've been here 50, almost 50 years on Elm Street. And they park on the sidewalk constantly. And I bet you if I were not parking the sidewalk, I'd get a ticket.
Okay, so thank you for those comments. A couple of things. First of all, in terms of the sign that we talked about that was not on the sidewalk, it is an official city sign. You could see it right here. It's number 4, regulation number 4. It says on the books that parking is prohibited all days from River Street, southerly 100 feet on the west side. So we did measure it, and indeed this sign is 100 feet from River Street on the west side. So that is an official sign. It's an official city sign. It is not a private sign that was put up by someone else. It's a city sign, and it is there on the books. And of course, Traffic Council had nothing to do with the project or the approval of the project at all. We're just here to handle the item that was docketed to remove parking on part of the street. In terms of people parking on a sidewalk or in a bus zone, so these are enforcement issues, and you've probably heard people say, recommend to you before that, it's up to the residents to, if we do have the parking control that go around, but in addition to their regular routes, just call enforcement 796-2106. Ask for enforcement on the streets. There's a car parked on the sidewalk. That's a ticketable offense. 5 feet from the driveway, ticketable offense. Parking in a bus stop, they're all ticketable offenses. So we always would just recommend, especially if you have trouble getting out of your driveway, for sure, if they're parking too close to your driveway, 796-2106. Ask for enforcement. And I see Captain Devine.
Just let me correct you on that, Dave.
Yeah.
We have it's 796-2123. That's the main
Oh, it
number.
is? Okay.
Well, it's 2106 is the traffic bureau.
Oh
But
my
if you
gosh, I've been given the wrong number for 20 years.
No, if you want to give a call for this is where you'd get 2123. That's the number to dispatch. They would get it right away, and they'd send an officer down there or a PCO, depending on the time and the day, down there to enforce it. That's the non-emergency dispatch line. So if you call 2106, I would just transfer you down to 2123. That will get you someone to respond right away.
Thank you. That's a better number then.
Yep.
Adrian, did you want to speak now, or did you want to wait for a public comment to conclude?
Sure, I'll wait.
Okay. So, John, did you have another comment?
Yes, just a couple points, and I know you said that this is more of changing the regulations for parking on the street. So a couple key points that I think, I think it's what's adding to the frustration, is that at any given time during the day on Elm Street, you might have one car parked on the street, maybe for 20 minutes, an hour. If it's a nice day, someone might be at the park. The problem that we're running into now is that you have between 5 and 7 cars so the picture that you have up on the screen right now from that city vehicle, straight up, you have about 7 vehicles parked. So you are either waiting there until all the traffic coming north gets by, and then you try to make the turn, and then you gun it. So now you're increasing your speed. So I don't believe that parking is going to slow people down, because you have to go as fast as you can, because you're playing chicken with someone coming in the opposite direction. And they're there for a full 8 to 10 hours a day. That's the problem. So I don't know if it's...
Can I stop you for just 1 second? Because maybe I want to say one thing, and maybe it will impact the next thing that you say. Okay. So I think that you'll find that the members of Traffic Council strongly believe that some level of parking on public streets is a good thing and should happen. There's many streets in the city that have some kind of hourly restriction, like a 2-hour limit, or or no parking 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. or something. And that is generally put in place if the street is so overused that residents have no ability to use their street. You know, I think that, or, if there's just too much demand on a street. Of course, if there is a 2-hour limit or something like that on a street, it applies to everybody, all the residents. Right now, residents who live on the street, they have access to free parking, free all day parking for their visitors and, their service delivery. But one thing that I would be interested, and I think the other members of Traffic Council would be interested to hear, is there an interest in having some kind of hourly restriction on the street so it's not all day parking? Is this only an issue because of the construction that's happening right now that will end and you'll be stuck with a 2-hour limit for after that point? Or was this a problem before the construction? I guess there was also construction across, in the more established, new buildings. So I just want to throw that out there. It was docketed as a request for a parking restriction. Okay. It doesn't say necessarily no parking on either side, right? So we have some flexibility if we think it would be helpful and desirable to have some kind of limited use of the street. So I just wanted to say that, and then I'm sorry I interrupted you, but would you like to continue?
Yeah, I understand your points, and you bring up the construction across the street. So where the new construction, you got to keep in mind that was, I think, close to 50,000 square foot lot that they built that property on, and it's completely different. All the construction, because my family lived on Elm Street when they did that construction. They weren't parking on the street. They weren't parking anywhere on the street. They were parking on the site, and they were getting the work done. That's the frustration that we all have. And I know we're going to go round and round tonight, and I don't know what the solution is, except for I wish the builder was on the meeting tonight, and he can hear the frustration that all of us are voicing, because it's not a question of when, it's not a question. It's going to happen that there's going to be more and more accidents in that section right there. And it just seems that it's completely unnecessary. That's, I think, the frustration that I have, is that seeing this every day, and whether it's you do 2 hours and all they're just going to do is they're just going to move their problem up the street. But you have those 5 to 7 vehicles that are just blocking that whole lane of traffic. And I'm telling you, I mean, I wish you guys would just take a ride down there during the day and see what is there. And even in that little vehicle that the city's, the employees are driving around in, you cannot get 2 vehicles past that. And I know on paper, yes, you think you can. You cannot get by. You're talking transit vans and pickup trucks, wide body pickup trucks, and it's not deliveries. And then you throw in, on the picture, you throw in that trailer that's right to the curb. So if I'm trying to squeeze tight to the curb, I'm going to hit that trailer with my mirror. And then you factor in that you have the buses, and then God forbid there's more and more accidents there. And now you have the fire department that they're not going to have access. And we haven't even got into the snow for the winter. These are the problems that we all, every single day, everyone on Elm Street is facing. That's what's the frustrating part for us. So do you ban parking on that street? I don't know if that's the right answer. I don't, it doesn't affect me. I'm on the other side of the street. So when I have guests here, you know what I tell them? I say, park in the municipal lot and walk up to my house. So I'm making the sacrifices when I have guests at my house, because I can't let them park in the street. So I just don't understand why the consideration isn't provided for the rest of us in the neighborhood. That's where the frustration comes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to say this one more time. The request that is made through Traffic Council is for a permanent change. If this is in fact a temporary, unsafe situation because of construction vehicles, maybe parking large vehicles, parking end to end on a regular basis during construction that creates an unsafe situation. That's not a permanent change that's being requested. That is a change that would, should be addressed by the Newton Police, the Traffic Bureau. They could go out and assess whether or not they think that it is genuinely an unsafe situation with the way the construction vehicles are parked, if it is end to end and, blocking traffic. And they have the authority to issue a temporary no parking restriction that, again, it's temporary. It would go away. It would not be permanent metal signs. We'd probably have, paper signs in place, or something better than paper, probably, while the problem is there. So that's something to think about. What is being asked is a permanent change right now, not something that is a temporary unsafe situation. I see Felix Toronto. Is it? If you can unmute.
Yes, Felix Toronto. I live at 46 Elm Street. I understand what you're saying, that this is not about the construction, it's the future of Elm Street, and what's going on to happen in Elm Street. Well, we have the fortune to look into the future right now with what's going on, that it's not going to work. We're talking about units that are built with insufficient parking, which is going to force people to park on that street all day long. Could you go to the photo of where the city vehicle is straight on?
I can try, yeah.
If you look at that right there, I'm not talking about a truck. I'm not talking about an SUV. I'm talking about a regular car cannot go by that city vehicle without crossing over a double line, which is illegal, which you're not supposed to be able to cross over a double line. If you line up cars that are going to be parked inside of that monstrosity being built along that street, people are going to be driving on the opposite side of the road to get by. The other thing is the entrance of that monstrosity. When you pull out, you can't make a complete turn out onto Elm Street, heading towards River Street. You're going to come into the other lane of traffic because cars are parked right across from you. You're not going to be able to pull in to that unit because of the congestion. People right now on Elm Street can't even get in and out of their driveway because cars are parked on that area. I mean, we're looking at a problem that's going to increase in the future, not decrease in the future. And it's because something was approved, which we have to deal with now. All right. But the whole thing is the city has made mistakes giving these approvals. Well, don't stop making mistakes and giving more approvals and more say, we'll just push it out into the street,
So thank you for that comment. So Traffic Council has no jurisdiction over line painting, right? So we do have this double yellow line here. There are options that could be considered in the future. And I agree, we don't want to have a situation where a vehicle crosses over a double yellow line. It's probably right in the middle of the street. I think in the future, and maybe Adrian's on the line, you might want to chime in on this later, either a double yellow line could be removed in the future or moved over a little bit more, if that is, going to be helpful. If there's no parking on one side and parking is allowed on the other side, maybe the double yellow line should not be right in the middle of the street. And I hear all the frustration about the building that was approved. It was not approved through Traffic Council. We're just trying to deal with the item that was docketed. Crystal Bales.
Yeah, I want to agree with Felix that, I understand the issue as well, that the construction is not permanent. That's not our concern. It's that we are seeing the future. People, due to the insufficient parking at those units, we know that people are going to park on the street, and it's very dangerous and hard to see. And so I think mean, at the very least, putting parking restrictions, no overnight parking, no parking during rush hour when it's really busy and you can't get out, I think is like the minimum that should definitely be done, because otherwise people are gonna just use that as their own like parking, and certainly for guests, but even for extra, parking that for people that don't have an extra space, and they should not be allowed to be parking there all the time.
Right, and and your comment about the no overnight parking is very, it's very timely right now. I don't think we have any street, I don't think we have any example in the city of a street that is only, no parking overnight. But we do, again, I mentioned this before, and I think it's really important to recognize that we have right now on the books a city ordinance that restricts parking in the winter overnight. It's the winter overnight parking ban. It is that ordinance that, prevents people from parking all year round on the street because they can't park there in the winter. That ordinance might go away. It's going to be on the ballot next year. So I think that there could be implications, for this street and for other streets. You're right. I think that, I don't know. I really have not, I don't know the history at all about this particular project or what was discussed or what was approved. I do know that there's a goal of discouraging additional automobiles in the city and encouraging more walking and biking and using public transit. So, I think that, again, what we're left with is some sort of hourly restriction, some sort of 2-hour limit or something like that. But that affects everybody that lives on the street or visits the street. I find it hard to believe that we would have the first street in the city that would be no parking overnight. In this case, we don't have that regulation anywhere in the city. I see you have your hand up again, Mr. Baima. And you're still muted. Okay, so you need
Okay,
to.
am I there now?
There you go.
Like I said before, all the years I've been here, there was a sign there, be it illegal or whatever it was. I was told it was an illegal sign, but we never had this problem because people didn't park there anyway. Now that we have all these people going to be moving in across the street with parking for one car only, where are they going to park? They're going to park in those parking spaces. And to have it no overnight, I don't care if they park there overnight. It's during the day when there's traffic and the buses and the trucks. That's when you need it. And as far as eliminating the double line and putting a single line, you still can't cross a single line. A solid line, you're not supposed to pass. But it's now, like the previous two people are saying, we're looking at the future where there's going to be 9 units there. And that's potentially 18 more cars that have no place to park. And they're going to park in those parking spaces. We never had a problem all these years until they built that building. So it's just like looking into the future. We know what's going to happen. It's inevitable. There's no other solution. There's no parking on River Street. Put those 4 parking spaces on River Street. There's no parking either side River Street. That street's wider than Elm. Put parking spaces over there. That would be a good solution.
Okay, so thank you all. I want to thank the public for commenting on this item. We're going to close the public comment period, and we're going to bring the discussion to the members of Traffic Council and any other counselors that might be on the call. So comments from Traffic Council?
Could I just chime in real quick?
Yes, Adrian.
I just wanted to mention, so there is the bus stop further south on that side of the roadway. One possibility, if it could be shifted further towards River Street, it would create a large contiguous no parking zone from the 100 feet from the corner, in addition to the bus stop length which would reach you the entire frontage of the opposing property.
Say again, Adrian, you're talking about the southbound bus?
Yes,
Well,
the
then
southbound bus stop that we see there, if that was
Right.
shifted further north, that could
Up to
continue.
here.
Yes, just south of that red line there. That would create a joint no parking zone, and that would pretty much create a no parking zone opposite the property for that entire length.
Right, so if that would be something that we could talk to the MBTA about, we need to, I mean, obviously it's their bus stop, they have their certain requirements in terms of the length and the width of the landing platform, ADA access issues. If they are agreeable to relocate their bus stop, I don't think it changes any of the regulations because you still can't park in a bus stop. Right? But that's something that, we might want to be able to follow up on. I wonder if it's in any of the photos you're talking, so it would be actually like up here, you're saying, right?
No, so keeping the 100 feet from corner, yeah. So starting there,
Like
heading
right
south.
where this white car is parked.
Exactly, yep. And we do have a new sidewalk there that's already accessible.
So for this to become a bus stop,
Correct.
so that could be an option. It seems like it's a landing platform. We would be adding new signs into the sidewalk.
Yep. And that would free up the spaces that, would be freed up from moving it from its previous location.
Right, and so, right, so effectively, there would be no parking here.
Yeah,
Although we don't need to vote on anything because it's already a regulation that you cannot park in a bus stop. Maybe that would be helpful. It doesn't seem like it's a traffic council vote though, but it's something that we would write down as a potential action to take. Can I open up the public comment period one more moment to see if any of the residents have any thoughts about shifting the bus stop? So that it would be where this Leaf is parked, this Nissan Leaf. So it's sort of, people might be waiting right at this crosswalk. Mr. Bima. You're still muted.
I think that's a great idea. I think it's as good as it's going to get for us. With the resistance we've been getting and the cooperation the builders are getting from whoever is cooperating with them, I think that's a great idea. It'll solve the problem of the parking in that area. It'll just move what the bus stop further up the street. It's just transponding those spaces to a different location. They're not eliminating any bus stops, and you're solving our parking problem to a degree.
I mean, we cannot guarantee that the MBTA would accept that. I think that our experience with the MBTA is that they might say, oh, we have two bus stops so close together on the same block, let's get rid of one of them, right? So we don't really know how it would play out, but it is something that seems to be a good idea. I'm glad Adrian brought it up. I'm glad that there's some level of support. We could definitely I already made a note that we could reach out to our contacts at the MBTA to see if they're willing to entertain that, that option, but it's nothing that we could guarantee would happen. Ajita, did you have a comment about relocating the bus stop?
Yeah, I did. I think that, people who are smarter than I am in terms of what issues this would cause need to look at this. But it just seems like you're moving the problem from point A to point B. I mean, is it really you're doing something, but is it really solving the issue?
Well, I think it does make sense when you look at the regulation. If if you could think about it as a no parking zone and a little bit of an extension where you can't park because the bus stop is there, might just seem simpler than having a no parking zone and then allowing parking and then no parking at the bus stop and then parking is allowed again and then no parking at the end, right? So it seems simpler. It seems like a nice sidewalk. I think that's probably why Adrian thought about that idea.
Additionally, I do think the concern is more critical on the north side with that right turn from River Street, as opposed to further down where vehicles are traveling slower anyways. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, other comments from members of traffic council? Any thoughts at all?
I just want to
Yeah, Margo.
advocate my support for Adrian's suggestion. I think at least trying to pursue that before we go towards a more dramatic option would be in everyone's best interest.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments?
I'll just jump in too and say, I mean, I think we heard your frustrations loud and clear tonight. And, I think we're all, understand what you're dealing with. And it sounds like, David, you presented a lot of sort of short-term and, longer term options that in the short term, hopefully the Traffic Bureau can look into, if there are existing issues that can be, or safety issues that can be addressed with the construction vehicles. And if we can, request that the MBTA move this stop. And if that doesn't seem sufficient, we could look at, some short-term hour parking, either time limited or, no parking during certain times, that those would all, help address the problem. So thank you for sharing your concerns and recognizing what Traffic Council, is limited to here, and hopefully we can work on these pieces.
Thank you, Councilor Bixby. And can I ask you, Captain Devine, instead of having, asking the residents to call, is it possible just to, plan to have an officer go and take a look at the safety, of what's happening on the street with all the vehicles that are there and make some sort of assessment about whether a short-term temporary parking regulation, parking restriction might be warranted here?
Sure. First of all, I can have the PCOs focus on all the cars that are parked illegally, like some of the comments made before. And then, we'll have an officer go down and just take a look at the safety aspects as well. We could do that.
Okay. All right. So it's sounding like the Newton PC parking control officers and Traffic Bureau will be taking a look and enforcing infractions. We will investigate with the MBTA. We'll make a request. We'll take a look and we'll make a request that the MBTA consider relocating the bus stop, as we discussed. I still think that there is an action that Traffic Council should take with this item to, as shown on this slide on page 10, to make what's on the books match the signs that are in the field right now, where there actually is no parking on the entire east side of the street. So at least I would like to take that vote and sort of, once we take this vote, it doesn't mean that nothing else will ever change in the future, right? So I think we can wait and see what happens when the construction's done. No, we can't know for sure exactly what's going to happen, but if we do find that there is a problem on the street in the future and another change, is warranted, the residents should feel free to docket another Traffic Council item in the future. All right. So we have one last comment, from Felix Toronto. Are you still there?
I'm here.
Did you have a comment still?
Yeah, real quickly, if someone on the traffic council, if we're, looking in the future, and Officer Devine, that job box on the sidewalk, it should be pushed off the sidewalk because we have all this concern of traffic, people going around traffic, no room. So everyone's walking off the sidewalk, right where that gray box is, trying to get
Okay.
around it, and someone's going to get hit. So that shouldn't even be on the sidewalk. And obstruct the people walking around to walk into where we already have concerns of traffic. That's it.
Right, I think that that's a really good point. I don't know why that is there. Is that a inspectional services kind of request to go and make sure that, that belongs there? What do we think?
Yeah, I would definitely see if that's an inspectional service and if they granted them permission to do that. Obviously, it should not really be on the sidewalk forcing people onto the street.
Yeah, there should be signs, right, that say sidewalk closed, cross here on
Yeah.
both sides. It is not safe to be forced to walk in the street. You see that from time to time and it's never safe. It should not be there, right? So I'm going to make another note that we should reach out to inspectional services. What would you call that gray box? Just
Is that like a Connex box? We had a Connex box on the 25 Chestnut Street, but I don't know what the proper name, but we would call it Connex box.
Connex box?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So thank you all. I hope we made some progress. And I would like to make a motion to approve this language that we see on this slide. So this would be TPR 960, right, Danielle?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to approve TPR 960 for TC 4724, just to not change any of the signs on the street, but to make our official regulations match the currently posted signage. So that is my motion for this item. If this does pass, this item is removed from our agenda. We do have the appeals period still, but we will be following up with connecting with the MBTA about the bus stop and connecting with inspectional services. And like what Captain Devine mentioned in terms of taking a look at what's happening on the street in terms of safety. And I guess that's what we could do for now. So that is my motion. Is there any last comments? All right, Danielle, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Council Bixby,
Aye.
Mr. Ayala,
Aye.
Captain Devine,
Aye.
and Miss Spiller.
Aye.
Okay, that's approved 5-0.
Okay, thank you all. We're going to move on to our next item now. All right, so our next item is TC 5324, David Kosis, Traffic Council Chair, requesting to update the traffic and parking regulations to reflect the existing parking regulations along Albemarle Road, including the location of accessible parking spaces and related sections of the TPR. And I'm also going to open the next item, which is TC 2522. It's related to this. Jason Sobel, Director of Transportation Operations, and Nicole Banks, Commissioner of Parks and Recreation, requesting the following to respond to changing conditions brought on by various municipal redevelopments and parking demands along Albemarle Road. Traffic Council shall be allowed to vote to allow a long-term trial on the northbound section of Albemarle Road between Watertown Street and Craft Street, which may include changes to the location and regulations of the parking spaces along this stretch. Changes made during the trial period are to be approved by the Commissioner of Public Works in consultation with the Director of Planning Development, the Planning Department, and the Chief of the Newton Police Department. These changes are temporary in nature and would revert to original conditions unless Traffic Council subsequently makes permanent changes by voting to change the traffic and parking regulations. At any time, the police department may end any traffic council trial. Okay. So for 5324, this is Albemarle Road, and we're going to be talking about the northbound section between Watertown Street and Craft Street. So, as the subsequent item TC 2522 called for, a lot of changes were made along Albemarle Road over the past several years, right? Here's a view looking north from Watertown Street. You can see we have the new NECP, the preschool. We have a bicycle lane that's been marked. We have a new bus zone that was installed further up for the day middle school. We have a new pedestrian bridge that was added with spaces that were removed for a new crosswalk that was added. We have now the back and angled spaces. We knew all these changes, the new pool, right, that went in, a lot of changes along Albemarle. And we knew that we needed to make various changes to the parking restrictions along the street, adding accessible spaces, moving things around. And so that's why we held the trial. And so for the past 2 years, we've been making little adjustments, monitoring it, seeing what else could change. And until, changing the signs, working with Parks and Rec about what the restriction should be near the pool. And now we're ready to make what's in the field permanent in our regulations, right? So all we're really voting to do with this item is to make official all the signs and where all the parking spaces and where all the accessible spaces are and where the bus zone is that's in the field now, okay? We felt like now was the time that we're satisfied with everything and we're ready to make it official. So, so this item would be removing all the official regulations, all the official parking regulations. And also one interesting thing that we noticed is on the books, we have an overnight, that's funny. Like at the last item, I just said that we don't have any overnight parking restrictions, but this was the only one that I guess we had. Even though maybe no one knew about it, there is an overnight parking restriction on Albemarle Road on the books. No parking 10:30 p.m. to 7 a.m. On the northbound side, and no parking 8 p.m. to 7 a.m. on the southbound side. This was on the books. I think there's like one sign that you might see, so maybe no one even ever knew that it was on the books. I did reach out to the police department, my own department here at Parks, DPW, Parks and Rec, the schools, to make sure that everyone was okay with removing that overnight parking ban on the street. Everyone seemed fine with it. So part of this item would be removing that restriction that maybe no one even knew about and removing any signs that are still there. And then adding back all these very specific measurements that you see in green on Albemarle Road. It's sort of everything that happens, as you're walking from south to north on the street. And it's all here. It was measured twice to make sure it can be as accurate as it could be. Cleaning up the description of the accessible spaces, where they're located, how many of them there are. And so that is, that's the recommendation to vote to update our actual regulations. Jesse, if you could just say your full name and your address, please.
My name is Jesse Corey, and I live at 64 Oak Cliff Road, and I have several comments about Albemarle Road. So some of the comments that I want to make is that near the crosswalk, both at the old footpath and the new footpath that cross over Cheesecake Brook. On the northbound side, it looks like that there could be like one extra space added just before you get to the crosswalk. And also near the corner of Albemarle and Craft Street on the northbound side, I was just adding like 2 or 3 more spaces in order to discourage drivers from leaving the travel lane if they want to turn right onto Craft Street, because earlier this year, it was in April, I was at the stop sign at the corner of Crafts and Albemarle waiting to turn right onto Craft Street, and a pickup truck pulled up to my right. And so when both me and the pickup truck made the right turn, I was forced to turn right into the painted median on Craft Street, and I didn't feel that was safe. And also for the southbound side of Albemarle.
So Jesse, hold on one second. So on that, we still have, I'm still including this parking restriction, the last 70 feet before you get to Craft Street. So that those last couple spaces, they used to be park and pedal spaces. We're still having a prohibition. It would allow us to put back up the flex posts that were there at, during, except in the winter, they have to be taken down. And, retain the flexibility that we need. So I think that that's what you were talking about. And I'm sorry to interrupt you. You can continue.
And then for the southbound side of Albemarle, that was just paved in the past month. And then they finally put down the striping, like by the end of last week. And I saw that the way that they striped this newly paved southbound side of Albemarle, there's not enough room in the shoulder to allow parking. And there's also a lack of sidewalks on most of the southbound section of Albemarle.
Okay, so Jesse, let me just stop you because this item is very specific to the northbound side. We're only talking about the northbound side of Albemarle. The southbound side is a whole other thing that I'm sure will have to be addressed with another docket item in the future. So why don't you hold the comments about the southbound side of Albemarle, because we all know that there's a lot of different issues and concerns on that side as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for that comment. Any other comments? Okay. So then I will make the motion, since I did the measurements, to approve the language of TPR 961 as shown on, these slides from page 15, 16, 17, and 18. This would be TPR 961 for TC 5324. Any last comments? Okay, Danielle, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Counselor Bixby,
Aye.
Mr. Ayala,
Aye.
Captain Devine,
Aye.
and Miss Spiller.
Aye.
Okay, that's approved 5-0 TPR 961.
Okay, good, thank you. And Jesse, we'll get to the southbound side at some future point. No doubt in my mind. So we already had opened TC 2522. Now we can make a motion to NAN the item. It's not needed anymore. The trial's over, and we just voted on the permanent changes along this northbound stretch. So I will make a motion to NAN TC 2522. Any comments? Danielle, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Counselor Bixby,
Aye.
Mr. Ayala,
Aye.
Captain Devine,
Aye.
and Miss Spiller.
Aye.
Okay, that's no action necessary, 5-0.
Okay, thank you. So now I'm going to open the next three items, which came about as part of, I think it was a a school safety meeting that we had with Counselor Downs and some others about some stop signs near the Williams School. So the next three items, TC 5024, Counselor Downs requesting to add a stop sign at the T intersection of LaSalle Street at Hancock Street to improve safety. Note that this item does not request a stop sign on Hancock Street itself, only on LaSalle Street. TC 4924, Counselor Downs requesting to add a stop sign at the T intersection of Fern Street at Hancock Street to improve safety. Note that this item does not request stop signs on Hancock Street itself, only on Fern Street. And TC 4824, excuse me, Counselor Downs requesting to add a stop sign at the T intersection of Williston Road at Hancock Street to improve safety. Note that this item does not request stop signs on Hancock Street itself, only on Williston Road. So here's the first item, TC 5024. Here's the location in the red rectangle, the end of LaSalle Street as it hits Hancock Street. There's no stop sign there now, you can see. And so this, this one and the two that follow are all similar. They're all requesting stop signs at T intersections, right? So, and we get this type of request pretty much every single traffic council meeting to add a stop sign at a T intersection somewhere in the city. And so we have the same exact slide repeatedly, that there's no warrants, there's no official warrants that we look to when there's a request to add a stop sign at a T intersection. It's an implied stop. It's not required to put a stop sign there, but stop signs are allowed. And almost every time that it comes to traffic council, we do approve the request to put the stop sign in, especially when it's near a school or with pedestrians nearby. It does clarify the right of way, and we do think that there's a small safety benefit of adding these stop signs. So in this case, the recommendation is to approve the stop sign at this location, and we have the language to be able to vote on it. Are there any comments from anyone? Okay. Then I will make the motion to approve the language of, it would be TPR 962 for TC 5024 to add the stop sign at LaSalle Street at Hancock Street in the westbound direction. And Danielle, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Councilor Bixby,
Aye.
Mr. Ayala,
Aye.
Captain Devine,
Aye.
Cap-
Aye.
and Miss Spiller.
Aye.
Okay, that's approved 5-0.
Okay, moving right along, we have TC 4924. This is at Fern Street at Hancock Street. Here's this view. You can see the Williams School in the background. You can see the crosswalks where all the students are crossing. The same slide that we just talked about. And we, again, are approving, we're recommending approval of this stop sign as well. And so I will make the motion to, okay, before I make a motion, I do see that we have one hand raised. Caroline, and can you just say your full name and your address, please?
Sure, Caroline Schwerian, 7 Williston Road, right across from the school. So Fern Street is just 2 doors down, and I'm right on the corner of Williston when you get to the next one. I don't have much comment other than I apologize. I missed the very first minute or so when you might have talked about how this petition came up. There's a lot of interest in traffic right now because of construction will be going on the street. So
well, we have a school transportation working group, I think it's called, and it is composed, I think Councilor Bixby is a member of that. I think many of us, Adrian and Captain Devine, we have members from the school committee, and we meet regularly, and the school department as well, to talk about all sorts of safety issues and transportation issues around our schools. So this just came about because we were talking about the Williams School and different things that could be done to improve safety, make it a little bit safer. And so that's, where someone said, oh, there's some stop signs that are missing. And so we just, Councilor Downs has a strong interest in safety, like we all do, around the schools. And she decided to docket these 3 items, and that's how it came about.
thank you. I appreciate that. I don't have any other comment. I think any of, personally, I stop in those locations anyway, but it can never hurt to have that extra help. So thank you.
Thank you very much for that comment. Okay, so I would like to make the motion to approve this item on page 32. This would be TPR 963, to approve the stop sign at Fern Street and Hancock Street. Councilor Bixby.
I just, your slides are fantastic and I like the movement, but I just wanted to make sure that the, it's not going to replace the crosswalk sign, right? It'll go with it.
So Traffic Council does not approve crosswalk signs.
Okay.
Crosswalk
So if
signs
it's
are
still
not in the
there,
TPR.
if it's there, then it would just
So
go.
that sign is there because our Nina, who's our traffic superintendent, has decided that that's a good place to put that sign. I can make a note. I don't think, maybe Adrian knows, I don't think we can have 3 signs.
Oh.
I think that we probably need to remove those 2 signs when you have a stop sign and relocate them elsewhere if possible. Adrian, did you have any thoughts about that? Or
Yeah, so that sign in particular is calling for a yield regulation for pedestrians on the crosswalk. Given that we're changing the official regulation to be a stop, they would be in conflict.
Oh, why would that be a yield? Because it's yellow?
Yes,
Or-
it's an alternative to the diamond sign.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So
Got
is
it.
there
Okay, so
is
would
there some other type of sign that would be appropriate, for crosswalks?
So it'd be the stop sign would control the crosswalk.
Okay.
Vehicles would have to stop
Yeah.
pedestrians.
Yeah, that's true. I guess if you have to stop, that's better, I guess, than yielding.
okay, that's
And
helpful
then-
information.
And then there's the sign that says no parking anytime. I think that sign would have to be moved somewhere else.
Okay. All right. Yeah, just the because the crosswalk off to the left. But that's I think this is a great thing to do, and maybe we can look at that if it seems like there's a problem.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. So I made the motion to approve the language of TPR 963, as shown on slide 32. And I think we're ready to vote. So Danielle, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Councilor Bixby,
Aye.
Mr. Ayala,
Aye.
Captain Devine,
Aye.
and Ms. Spiller.
Aye.
Okay, that's approved 5-0.
Okay, so then we have TC 4824, which we opened before. Here is Williston Road, same thing. No stop sign located there. And same considerations, being near a school. We do recommend putting the stop sign here as well on a new post. And here is the language that we would be able to vote on. Are there any comments? Okay. So I'll make the motion to approve TPR 964. I think I just said that twice. Danielle, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Councilor Bixby,
Aye.
Mr. Ayala,
Aye.
Captain Devine,
Aye.
and Ms. Spiller.
Aye.
Okay, that's approved 5-0.
So our next item is TC 5424. This is Councilors Downs, Getz, Humphrey, Lobovitz, Stanberg, and Bixby, requesting the Traffic Council vote to ask MassDOT to rescind the 35-mile-per-hour section of the special speed regulation on Beacon Street from Chestnut Street to the entrance of Cold Spring Park in both directions. If approved by Traffic Council, the city clerk's office would notify MassDOT of the official action taken, and MassDOT would subsequently issue a modified special speed regulation to reflect these changes. If the existing 35-mile-per-hour special speed regulations are rescinded in this area, the statutory speed limit of 25 miles an hour would be in effect. Okay, so this is the third time that we are following this pretty new process to rescind a portion of a special speed regulation or regulatory speed limit. Here is what is the special speed regulation for Beacon Street. Okay. This is called Special Speed Regulation 728A. So you can see it in our traffic and parking regulations. This is exactly the speed limit that was approved decades ago by the city of Newton. I think it was the Board of Aldermen at the time, and I guess it was Mass Highway at the time before MassDOT came into being. You can see the specific measurements of where on Beacon Street the speed limit is 30 miles an hour, and then goes to 25, and then 30, 35, 30, 35, 30, along the entire street. So this is the area that we're talking about, this section of Beacon Street between Chestnut Street and Cold Spring Park, where we have the 35-mile-an-hour sign. The goal is to remove this 35-mile-an-hour sign. That's why this item was docketed. So in order to do that, we would need to request that MassDOT remove this area, this portion of the special speed regulation 728A, at this one section shown in red. So that would be a request that we would make to MassDOT to remove just this one section and keep the rest. And then so that was eastbound, and then westbound, same thing. To remove this 35-mile-an-hour sign, we would be asking MassDOT to remove this one specific regulatory speed limit in the middle of Beacon Street. And so that's what the process that we would need to follow. So we would hold this item. So this would be a vote to hold from Traffic Council. Then we would ask MassDOT to rescind the portions of the special speed regulation 728A that are shown in red. And then wait for MassDOT to respond to our request. Seems like it could take a long time. We've been waiting for months for the last time that we asked for a special speed regulation to be rescinded on Woodward Street. The first one that we asked for was on Washington Street. That's been done. And so those 35-mile-an-hour signs on Washington Street have been removed. But this is the process we need to follow. So we hold this item, we ask MassDOT to rescind it, then MassDOT would rewrite the regulation. And then once we hear back, then we would be able to NAN this item and remove the sign and update the TPR with removing that one piece of the special speed regulation. So I think I got all that right. Adrian, did I say that completely correctly, or did I say anything wrong?
No, that's correct.
Okay, good. I'm almost a traffic engineer, right? But not quite. So that's what we are doing. So I think that we're just asking, I guess the request here is to hold the item and to, ask MassDOT to make that change. So I would take a motion to hold from someone. Unless there's any comments. I don't see any comments. So was that Margot that said that?
It was me.
Oh, okay, Councilor Bixby. So we have a motion to hold this item and follow this process. And I think we're ready for Danielle to call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Councilor Bixby,
Aye.
Mr. Ayala,
Aye.
Captain Devine,
Aye.
and Miss Spiller.
Aye.
Okay, that's held 5-0.
Okay. So our last item is it's the end of the year. We're required to have a chair for Traffic Council for next year. So we need to have a nomination and then a vote. Is there anyone that would like to nominate someone to be the Traffic Council chair for 2025?
Dave, I'd like to nominate you.
Yeah, I'd like to nominate David.
Okay, I guess I got two nominations. So I accept the nomination. I'm willing to, I'm happy to be the chair again for 2025. Are there any other nominations? Okay, so we'll close the nominations and we will have a vote for me to be the chair for one more year for calendar year 2025. And Danielle, can you call the roll?
Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Counselor Bixby,
Aye.
Mr. Ayala,
Aye.
Captain Devine,
Aye.
and Miss Spiller.
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Kosis is chair, approved 5-0.
All right, so I think that's all of our business for tonight. Happy holidays to all of you. Happy New Year. We won't have another traffic council meeting until January 30th.
30th.
January 30th. And Adrian will be continuing on. I guess I should take the opportunity to thank Isaac Prezant for 6 years on traffic council. We're sorry to see him leave the city, but we wish him well as he moves on to his new position in Boston. So thank you all. Have a good night.